What's going on, guys? This is Joe Tallarico, and you're listening to the Aha Moment podcast, where we find regular people who said no to playing it safe, failed along the way, and are in the middle of their grind to the top. Here's how they think when everyone else tells them no. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today with none other than Marcus Singleton.
Hey.
How you doing, man? How's it going?
Man, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, nice. So for those who don't know, tell them a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Sure, absolutely. Of course, my name is Marcus Singleton. I'm a musician, singer-songwriter, music producer. Literally, you gotta do a little bit of everything. But I'm actually a show producer as well, so I organize shows for artists. Do a little bit of everything.
Nice. What got you into producing music and setting all that up?
Sure. Yeah, ever since I was young, my father plays guitar.
Oh, wow.
And he's been playing guitar 30, 40 years. He actually builds his own guitars custom by hand.
Does he still do that today?
He still does that to this day. So he actually, goes from taking the wood, painting it, carving it out, painting it, putting all the hardware in it, putting the strings, everything is custom by hand. And so with that said, I've always grown up around music. I've always had quite attention to detail. And so I picked up piano very early, started playing in church, and I've always my life has been heavily influenced by music.
Has it having that ability to play music come easy to you, or did you struggle learning to play those instruments?
It's funny, I've always been more of a creative. So my father would always be upset. He still to this day is upset with me and my lack of practice, right? So all I want to do is actually go there, perform, and create and write new stuff. But I was not always excited about going to class and learning. But what I found is that the older that I get, the more that things slow down and they make much more sense. But when I was younger, I was much more enthralled by just wanting to create and just play and not so much of the process. But of course we know how important the process is these days.
Yeah, for sure. Growing up watching your dad build those guitars and being around that music, how did that influence the way you saw creating and making music? And because it takes a while to build a guitar, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Really it just goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier. He was always drilling into my mind how important it was to do things for a reason. And he would always say, everything you do affects something else. So in that regard, it's just nothing that you really want to see happen is going to happen overnight. And it's going to take blood, it's going to take tears, it's going to take dedication. But also at the same time, the more and more that you do it, the easier that it becomes. So of course for my father, he's built, over 100 guitars. So now he can knock one out in much less time than, of course, when he started his first one. Now when I write music or I'm writing a beat or I'm composing music for another artist, that becomes easier just because I've been like Kobe Bryant in the sense of putting a lot of shots up.
Yeah.
You want to take a lot of free throw shots, and then when you get to the line, you're confident. But if you only took one before practice, or before the game rather, then you're not going to be too confident when the game is on the line.
Oh, for sure. I think they even looked at a stats. They were looking at high performers, and they were looking at Michael Jordan because they were saying, Michael Jordan's the best closer. He's always good at those last minute shots. But when they looked, it wasn't even that he's a great closer. It's just that he took so many of those shots that it increased his chances of succeeding. So it goes back to what you were saying. It's you gotta be willing to take those shots to eventually close and build that skill up. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Was there anything else in your childhood growing up that kind of shaped you getting into music, attitude-wise and attributes? Maybe you got either picked on for a certain thing that made you strive?
Yeah, I think music comes in my family. So my mother played, instruments in band in high school. She was in the marching band. My grandfather sang. He was in the choir in church. Just something my sister also sings. So it's something that we always did kind of as a family. We were always involved in church, and church, of course, is highly revolving around music. So playing in church and just being at church all the time with my family, you know, that just was dealing with a lot of music. I don't think I ever wanted to do music because I was picked on, but I did remember one time that I've always wanted to, you know, go to music school and be a music producer. And so it was ninth grade. I'll never forget it. I was in ninth grade, a freshman in high school, and the teacher tasked us with doing a career, like a career day, or, you know, a book report on what we wanted to do with our lives. And of course, I went up there. I studied hard. Right? I talked about the schools I would go to, the type of car I would be able to drive, the money that, you know, I researched it. You know, in this case, it was I wanted to be an audio engineer, and you know they can make anywhere between $80,000 to $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so I gave my book report with the best of intentions, and after I was done, she looked at me and said, "There's no way that that's going to happen for you." You know, in front of the class. And
this
so,
is 10th grade, 9th grade?
This was in ninth grade. So I remember her giving me a C and asking me that if I wanted to do a better grade, I had to choose something else that was something that was more realistic.
So she only gave you a C because you chose an quote unquote unrealistic career.
Unrealistic career. Even though the work was done.
Wow.
You know, so even though I had my book report in 12 space, double space, 12 font, you know, Times New Roman, it didn't matter to her because for her that was too outlandish thinking. And I think that that's the issue that a lot of us have, is we're scared that what we have in our mind is something that we can never get to. But that's not put into our mind by us. That's put into our mind by other people. You know, like when you're a kid, you don't have any idea of what you can't do. You feel like you can do anything. And the more and more that we get older, we let people that are around us take that away from us. So I think it's really important to put more positive energy into, you know, self-actualization and knowing, speaking into existence what you want to do. Because if you don't believe in yourself, you know, nobody else will for you.
Yeah, for sure. There's what kind of got me into this whole route of finding people's hustles is there's a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and there's a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset's like, oh, I'm either good at math or I'm not, and if I'm not, you know, I'm never going to be good. Growth mindset says, okay, I may not be good, but if I work harder, I can actually get better. And to what you were saying, like the biggest thing, at least for me, I hated growing up, was a similar thing, was for whatever reason, that maybe it's because they had to generalize it, the education system, I just feel like as a whole teaches you that fixed mindset. It's like you're either good at things or you're not. Like just what happened to you, like that's, you either choose a realistic career, which for everyone that's a totally different meaning. So it's like, what the hell? And then the fact that she just had the nerve to tell you, like, nope, not only am I giving you a bad grade, which is going to make you feel like crap about yourself,
right,
but I'm going to tell you how unrealistic it is, this dream or passion you want to follow is. That's just, I just don't see anywhere that's appropriate. And
right.
It's
right,
crazy.
but well, that's the public school system for you. But also, it shows how much self-doubt she had within herself.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like theoretically, I was talking about making double her income, you know, and I was talking about doing it with music, and so that was just so far-fetched for her and out of her wheelhouse of what she can imagine, because she really only imagined herself as a teacher for a public school.
And she might have even had a similar dream to yours, and because it didn't work out or she didn't even bother, she was like, I'm shutting this down.
Exactly, shutting it down. But back to what you're saying about growth, growth and comfort can't exist in the same realm. So there's no way that you can be comfortable and then continue to grow. Growing means pain. Growing means effort. Growing means doing what unsuccessful people are unwilling to do. And so the more and more that you can take the time to push harder and continue to go in on your dreams, then that's the determining factor. I don't think it's something special or there's like a secret formula. I just really believe that you have to be positive about it. One, you have to speak it into existence, and you have to give it everything that you got. But you can't get to a place, even if you're successful, and then say, this is where I can stop now, because no comfortable people, but no successful people want to be comfortable.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's having that beginner's mindset all the time.
Yeah. Want to continue to grow.
Nice. So then at that moment when she told you it was unrealistic, how do you even, as a ninth grader, because I know I'd fall apart if someone told me that, how did you hold it together and think, like, either put that to the side or let it fuel you? How do you move on from that?
Yeah, it's always fueled me. It was, I've had people in my family that, felt the same things and, encouraged me to go to college instead of pursuing music right out the gate, which is not necessarily a bad idea. I'm not knocking school in any regard. However, there was nothing at school for me because I knew at the end of the day what I wanted to do. So I think that if you allow other people's vision for you to taint what you really want, that's what takes away from your drive, from how much effort you will be able to put into something. So with that, it just made me want to skip class more. I used to have this teacher where it was an audio visual class, and so he was a cool guy, and he would let me sometimes get out of class or go late to class, maybe 15-20 minutes, and I would just stay on his computer making beats in the middle of fifth period.
See, that's cool because right there you get the total flip side. I feel like you get someone that kind of allows you to nurture your passion and work on it while someone else was trying to shut it down.
Yeah.
Did that play a big role in terms of what allowed you to let it fuel you? Because some people it's either going to fuel them or it's not. So what allowed you, it might have been your background with your parents and stuff, what allowed you to see it as fuel rather than, damn, I suck?
Yeah, I think just had a chip on my shoulder from that experience. And for me, when somebody says that I can't do something that can't be accomplished, it pushes me to drive harder for it. And so really, if you knew me well, you probably just suggested I do things that you really don't want me to do, and I'll try to do it more. But yeah, I think that experience has taught me that, I can show everybody wrong. And that's the goal, that's the process.
Do you have any tips for people who aren't good at that and maybe kind of struggle with seeing things the same way that you do and let it get to them?
Sure. I think Gary Vee says this actually a lot of times, is you might have to fire one of your friends. And I really do believe in that. You need to be around people that are going to motivate you, people that are going to pull you up, people that are going to also that are at a higher point in life than you are. You don't want to be going down to other people's level that aren't successful, that aren't. Now, that's not to say that you can't have friends, but what I'm saying is that you don't want to be around people that are consistently saying that you can't do something. You want to be around people that motivate you. So if you're having issues with just motivation in general, or feeling that nobody supports you, you need to look at the people that are in your immediate circle. You need to find better people to be with. And and that might take some work on your part. Every week, at least twice a week, even though we all have to make money in in their regular jobs or 9-to-5 jobs, but every week or at least twice a week, try to go and do something that's going to benefit the goal. So today is the podcast, tomorrow's the studio session, whatever it is. Do something so that now when you're struggling or when you're gritting your teeth at your regular job, you can have something to look forward to. But if you're still hoping that all these dreams are going to happen and then you have nothing that you can be excited about going to work for, that's when you're going to let that self-doubt creep in, and it's going to start to overtake you, because now you're just stuck in the rat race and you have nothing really to show for it.
Oh, for sure. I like that. And I like that, setting those goals of having 2 things a week to focus on that'll fuel that passion that you're doing.
Yeah.
Going on that route, how did you figure out the balance for all right, I still got to make money, but I'm going to make sure that the free time that I do have goes to what it is actually like?
Yeah. Definitely, it goes kind of back to who you surround yourself with. You want to have people that'll keep you accountable too. So it's good to have a dream with something that a goal that you want to execute, but you're going to need people to help you do that. Nobody does this on their own. Nobody. I think my auntie would always say, we're in the business of helping people, and it's your job to take advantage of people. And what she meant when she said that, of course, is not to take advantage of people in a negative way. However, I have something to give, you have something to give, we all have something that we can benefit from each other. And it's taught to us that we need to, be close and hoard everything to ourselves. But really, if we all took more of an active role in being more just in better communication with people and letting people know, hey, I can help you with that. I think that's something that is missed in today's society. We just went back to having more of a community thing than, and that can be in anything that in acting, in comedy, in music, anything that you want to aspire to. There's a community there. Have you broken into it? That's your question. But the more and more that you get into community, more and more that you're interacting with people that actually do what you want to do, the closer that you get.
That's awesome. And one of our previous guests, Doug, was talking about that sense of community.
My boy Doug.
Yeah, Big Doug. He brought that up, how over the years he's switched his mindset to more of a community, and how the more you, like you said, people think you've got to be so selfish, and it's like, I can't let people know my secrets. I can't give away all my connections. I got to use them for myself. That's how you lose in life. You've got to be all about, like, how can I help you? How can I help him? How can I help him? Because that's what's gonna come back tenfold. Not that you should only be helping people so you get something back, but it's how important that sense of community is, because you help each other. Just because when you're being genuine, people want to be around that. It's contagious.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. You got to be able to go out of your way to help your neighbor, and that neighbor might not help you, but all of the situations that I've been in are all from me taking a step in the right direction and not getting exactly what I thought in my head would happen, but by some way that I took that first step, it triggered something else where it came back around, and through that person I met somebody else. So I would say to the people listening as well, and I would say this to anybody, just take that first step. Focus on that. Don't focus on the end goal, because we know that we can't shortcut there. There's no shortcuts. There's no magic spells that you can do to skip the hard work. But I think people get overwhelmed with even taking that first step. Take that first step and go out there and shake a hand. We used to call it back in the gym business, shaking hands and kissing babies, right? So go out there and take a chance. Meet somebody that let your guard down. Let somebody know that, hey, that I want to do what you're doing. How can I admire you. Like, what can I do to be like you? And you'll be surprised, People are actually receptive to that, because they're like, hey, people don't ask me that. They see that I'm successful, and then they just are intimidated by that. But if you really want to do whatever your goal is, you need to be surrounded by people that are actually doing it.
Yeah. It makes me even think about in my own life. I'm thinking all the worthwhile connections, or like things that had helped me level up in my life, all came from a connection that I never, prior to that moment, if you said, oh, this dude or this girl's gonna help you get there, I never would have predicted it was them. It was never like, oh, it's my buddy that got me that. It was always that person I was nice to, and like I helped them do something, and they just happened to run into them a year later or something and want to hook up on something. But it's crazy how that works.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Did you have any influences growing up that kind of shaped that?
It's a lot of family. Really, in music, I had like influences that I didn't really know.
That's okay.
But I think also when we talk about just having a chip on your shoulder or being able to develop confidence, it's funny that you said something earlier about people that have a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. I was, like many kids, I wasn't very popular. I played sports, but I wasn't like a jock per se. I wasn't like the leader of the team, and I had to really learn to value myself. And so the more and more that you invest in making yourself better, now however that may be for you is different. But for me, for instance, one thing is I was always really skinny, right? So that would be something that people would always make fun of me for. However, the more and more I went about my life, I've realized, one, that I have things that I can bring to the table outside of that. And then two, I had to look in the mirror one day and say, hey, you're the only one that's going to be able to change that. And so I got a gym membership, and I started working on, developing my body so that I could see results for myself. And then the funny thing is, I remember calling my father, because he's been also at the same time lifting weights for more than 20 years too. So it would be worse because he would be this, big buff guy.
Is he a big guy?
Yeah, he's a big guy. He's been lifting weights for over 20 years.
Sure.
Bodybuilding, right? So he's a big guy, and I'm his skinny little son, and people are like, that's your dad? It would be even worse, right? But I remember, like it was yesterday, I had a 24-hour fitness membership, and this is before I worked in the gym industry. And I called him one day after a workout, and this is I was working out for maybe 3 months. And I called him, I said, Dad, I'm just not really seeing results, like what's going on? What am I doing wrong? And he's old school, he just laughed, he's like, son, you only been working out for 3 months. It's just not gonna happen overnight. But 3-4 years later, I look at the person that I was then and the person I've developed into now, not only bodybuilding wise, but just in general, like the discipline that it takes to build your body and to make your body into what you want it to be, says a lot for what people perceive of you, and so when people remember me as a young kid and they look at me now, they're like, wow, you've really grown up, and it shows maturation, and that's really what you want.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. For me, the working out, as a kid, I would always go through phases. Like one summer I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna learn guitar, and then I'd be bored of it. Then it was, oh, I wanna learn drums. Then I'd be bored of it. Then it's, oh, I'm into this toy, or oh, that looks cool. I never stayed with anything consistently for more than like 6 months.
Right.
And lifting was like the first thing that I had full control over that I did. When I hit my first full year of doing it, I was like, wow, I'm actually still doing this and staying consistent. And like, I agree with what you're saying. Like, it totally changed, especially when I got ready for my first competition, dieted down and saw abs on myself the first time. Yeah. For me, it was more of just like a mental hurdle I overcame of just like, wow, I did this. Like, no one helped me with this, maybe some advice, but I woke up every morning and did this, and I totally changed my outlook on how smart I can be about things and how much potential I actually have. So right. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that working out shows you your potential, because it's something that we've been saying this, and it's a reoccurring fact, but things are not handed to you. But if you can go in there and you can dedicate yourself even to the smallest goal, like I used to tell my clients, like, hey, don't try to lose 20 pounds, like you want to try to lose 5 pounds, get there and then set a new goal. But I think also we want to jump to our goals automatically. But the working out and just the self-education and making sure that you're disciplined, working out with your body, that translates into the other things that you want to do. So for me, it was learning how to be disciplined with my body, also allow me to be disciplined with my mind, in my craft, which of course is music.
Yeah, for sure. People see the mountain and they see Marcus at the top of the mountain. They're like, that's where I'm going to go. I'm just going to ask him some advice. I'm going to get there by the end of the week. But they don't see the whole middle and bottom of the mountain and realize he didn't just get dropped off there. He hiked up that entire mountain to get there. People want to just get dropped off, and it's not how it works. And I feel like you want that journey. Even if you had the option to just get dropped off at the top, you don't want that, because like you said, it's what you learn along the way that shapes how you're going to handle that success once you have it. If you just got it handed to you, you're probably going to be kind of an asshole about everything because you're not used to all the hard work, and everyone that's on your level is going to have had worked that hard to get there. So going into this music now, is there anything along your journey while whether it's producing music or just setting up events, that you learned that you never thought would be an issue beforehand, like anything unexpected?
I think that with music, you realize how much competition there really is. Yeah. How many other people are artists and aspiring to do the same things that you're doing. So I think that's one thing that I never really accounted for. I thought that just being good would be enough, but it's not just enough. It's not enough. And being good is in music is you have to be great. And you have to have the Mamba mentality. You have to have the Kobe mentality. Yeah. Kobe didn't get to one championship and was just like,
I'm
no,
set.
I'm set. No, he put 24 on his jersey because he wanted to be one over Jordan. He wanted to leave no doubt that he was the best. And that's the mentality that you have to have with music, with anything that you desire. You have to know that it's just being good is not enough. You need to be great. You need to aspire to be great. Now, if you don't turn out great, that's fine because not everybody can be great. But I would much rather to shoot for greatness and then be very good than to just be happy being mediocre.
They say it's not that we aim high and we miss, it's that we aim low and hit our target exactly. So
Yeah.
that's incredible, yeah. Do you find, so now going off of that, you know, for certain, I don't know if this pertains to music, but when people get really involved with their goals and they're focused on like, this is what I want to do, I'm hustling every day for it. Some people tend to get, I don't want to say selfish, but they just get so involved in their goals that they tend to either isolate themselves from people, or it's kind of like, I can't let you waste my time, I'm focusing on this. How do you balance like friendship and social life with making sure you hit your goals?
That's tough. There's going to be sacrifice. There's no way that you can. You either have to have friends, or girlfriend, or boyfriend, or what have you, somebody that understands your goals. If you have somebody that, especially if you're in a relationship with somebody that is not for your goals or is against your goals, forget about it.
It's gonna drag you down.
It's going to drag you down. So at that point, you might as well not be in that relationship. So I think that's a big deterrent. You have to be able to. You're going to have to be in a cave sometimes. You know, when I was working on my album, I didn't go out and party. You know, I wasn't hanging out with friends. I was spending all my money on producing my album. You know, and that's what it took. It took hours. It took staying up till 4 a.m, having to wake up at 6 for work the next day. It takes that type of grind, that type of hustle to get where you want to be. So you have to be able to balance it, but you have to know that there's no perfect balance. There's sacrifice. And you might have to sacrifice friendships. You might have to sacrifice partying. You might have to sacrifice, you know, whatever your vice is, too. You know, like if you drink a lot, you might not be able to drink as much because you need to, you know, not go out and party. You need to stay at home and hustle. So whatever it is, you know, you need to know that there's sacrifices that you need to make, and you need to be able to be comfortable with that and know that, and you need to get used to that, making that sacrifice, because it can't be a one-off thing. It can't be like, oh, well, you know, I didn't go to the club last week. No, you need to stay in the cave until you finish your goal.
I think people need to rewind and re-listen to that whole section right there, because that is so important. In fact, I feel like if there's one thing anyone's starting a goal right now that's trying to figure out like, oh, what are my priorities, that should be one of the first, is realizing that sacrifices at some point are going to have to be made. And especially, I love the example you give, because I feel like it's so stupid, but it probably happens so much more than you expect, of like, oh, I can either work on my hustle or I can go get drunk or go to the club right now. And it's like, really, if you're going to choose having fun and partying for that short-term satisfaction to sacrifice your long-term goal, you must not really want that goal bad enough.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, you know, if you really don't want something, I'm okay with that. You know, I'm not here to judge you and say like, oh, you're not grinding, you're not doing what you need to do. But if you're not doing what you need to do, you need to be honest with yourself, right? So if you want to be a musician, but you're not practicing, tough luck, because that's what being a musician is. Practice over and over and over again, countless hours of being by yourself, making sure that whenever you hit a chord, you hit the chord the right way. Whenever you sing a vocal pattern, that your voice doesn't crack. And that takes repetition, that takes dedication, it takes knowing yourself and being comfortable with yourself. So if you can't dedicate yourself to that, then go club, like go party. By all means, I'm not here to say don't have a good time.
Yeah.
But then don't come back on Monday and tell me, you know, and start talking about your goals and your dreams anymore. You know what I mean? You need to be able to dedicate yourself to it. And I think the other thing that's really been something that's interesting for me to see is I'm all about speaking things into existence, right? So I would talk to people about wanting to do things like produce my own album, right? And you know, people be like, yeah, that's cool. Let me know when it's done. And they're saying that kind of in I don't know, in a kind of in a jerk way, like they don't really believe you. But when the album was done and it was time for, it was time for things to be released, I pre-sold $1,000 worth of my album.
That's awesome.
To people that I talked. Thank you. To people that I talked to about, what I was going to do. So I think that it was much less the music, but it was much more people being like, "Wow, he actually did what he said he was going to do." And I think that that's a lost art too in today. I think a lot of people want, especially with, I don't want to say this so much, but obviously social media allows people to see what they want to see, right? So you can make it look like you're grinding when you're really kind of half grinding, but people know when you didn't do what you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
So if you're going to say that you're going to do something, do it. But if you're not going to do it, that's fine. Just don't like, you don't have to, tell me that you're going to do something just so that you can like make me feel good, know. And I feel very strongly about that.
You know whose book you'd really love that you should check out? I think it's my favorite book of all the books I've read. It's Kevin Hart's autobiography.
Really?
Yeah, because first off, his story is just, it's one, entertaining because like his dad was a crackhead and like just the stories he says. But when you hear his hustle of trying to become a comedian, it's just so good because it not only is super relatable, but it's like relatable and then some, because he had it so much harder in certain cases. There was a point where he's from Philly and he had to drive a comedian that was a little higher up than him back and forth to New York City like 5 times a week without getting paid, without getting any stage time, just to learn from this guy. And like his girlfriend wasn't supportive about it. He crashed his girlfriend's car a couple times. Like all the things that could go wrong were going wrong, but he was still pushing forward. And the reason I bring that up was right before he started comedy, he was working at a shoe store, and he realized that's when he can let his personality shine because he can talk to people. And so all his coworkers were like, "You're hilarious, man. Like you should do a stand-up thing." So that's when it first got in his head. So he did a stand-up, realized like, wow, this is something I actually like to do. Yeah. So he started getting into it a little more, and we started hitting that like edge, like you were saying, where it's like, I'm going to create my album. And for him, it was, all right, guys, I'm going to quit this job to do it full time. All the people that once supported him were now like, are you sure you want to do that? I don't know if you should. And that's when he learned like, wow, all these people that were just like, yeah, you should do comedy, all of a sudden turn their back on you because you're pursuing something they probably were too scared to pursue. And so like just the lessons like that you learn, and he didn't let it drag him down, same as you. He just kept pushing on. So it's
absolutely
a really, really cool story. Now in terms of goal setting, how do you make sure you stay on track week to week, month to month?
Yeah, my father used to always tell me this: if you have a goal, you need to write it down. So for me, I was trying to finish my album. I had a whiteboard in my room right next to my bed, and so I had like song number 1 through 10, and I would write check done lyrics, or mixing or mastering, and I would check everything off. And so I always had, it was in my room. There's no escaping seeing this all the time. So it was always front of mind, always present for me, the things that were on my list to do. If you want to reach a goal, you have to write it down, you have to plan it out. Because if you don't, and if you don't plan things, and if you don't make people keep you accountable, then it's very easy to be like, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll finish this part later. But that type of effort is not going to be enough. You have to. That's why, going back to what I'm saying, it's important to have people that can keep you accountable. So for me, a lot of times it was not even having the money, but just committing to a studio time, and just finding a way to make it happen, or paying somebody to do something just so that I know that was my deadline and I had to be done by then, and putting the pressure on myself to make sure that things were done. And so if you need to accomplish something, it's not to be done without scheduling it for yourself. Because just like you said, we're talking about balance, we're talking about having a real life where we have relationships, we have interactions with family, we have jobs, we have all the other, when shit happens and, when it rains, it pours, when all that happens, you still need to be able to be focused on your goal.
Having said that, on the days or weeks where you end up, for whatever reason, because shit happens, either falling behind on goals or something just didn't go the way you thought, how do you carry on from that? How do you pick yourself up?
That's a good question. I think you need to have like an internal something that is going to remind you. And I think we talk about, what is your why? And so for me, my why was knowing that my father moved. My father's from Connecticut, he's from the East Coast, right? And so he moved to Los Angeles to be a rock star. He moved to Los Angeles to play music and to be a rock star and to be in a band and do all those things. And I remember him working back-breaking hours and coming home later and doing all these things for my sister and I so that we can have a respectable life. And he put his dreams on hold for us. So it would be a gross misservice to him to do anything less than be successful, right? Because if I go and I'm just somebody that works at McDonald's, and no offense if you work at McDonald's, but if I'm somebody that just wants an average existence, then my father didn't teach me anything. And secondly, he has to live vicariously through me. He still gets out there, he still plays, he still has a good time in life. But I know what his real objective was, and I know also how much work he did that he didn't want to do for us. And so that's something that's always been, in the back of my mind, something that's always motivating me when I'm down, something that is gonna, make sure that I get a little bit further than him. And the other thing that I really want to expound on is that I don't just do this for myself. There was a Dame Dash interview. Dame Dash was he was like a co-creator of Rock Nation, the rock label with Jay-Z back in the day. And he said, I don't hustle for my first name, I hustle for my last. And what he meant when he said that is that the way I work hard and I want to be successful, not so that Marcus Singleton can be successful and make it and be rich and have money and have success and have all of the accolades. What I do is I want to do this so that the rest of my family can know that there is success. So the rest, for my little sister, for my kids, it would break my heart if my kids had to, have the same type of living circumstances that we did. And my parents did the best that they could, right? But if I had to go and do that all over again and then tell my kids that, no, we can't do that. We can't do this if you really want to, or you can't go to this camp with all the kids from school because you can't afford it. That would break my heart. So I have no choice but to be successful. I have no choice to do better than my parents, because there's no way that I can envision having a family and not being able to give them everything that they desire.
I've never heard the wording like that. I like how he said that, I hustle for my last name. I really, really like that, because that gives you a higher purpose for doing something and chasing after it. For me, to piggyback on that is, I realized even putting together this podcast, it took me like 6 months to get off the ground, between just lazy days and me just getting down in my own head. Mm-hmm. And the thing that eventually drove it through was, I see it as it's behavior association. So like you were saying, you can't just be like, I want to build a podcast because it would be cool, or I want to do it so that I can make money or meet some awesome future guests. That's not going to be enough to drive you to put in the hours to schedule people and edit and blah, blah, blah. Sure. It's the behavior. So for me, and everyone has their own verbiage for it, but for me it was like, I'm the type of person and that totally changed it for me. So the days were like, I think there was a point where I had a week or two where I just wasn't doing anything related to it, and it was really just getting in my head each day that passed. And the thing that kicked it back was, all right, why did I start? What was my whole reason of doing this to begin with? It was so that I could meet more people, hear their stories, but most importantly, share their stories so other people can hear it, and those people can hopefully be inspired. So it was all about scaling out. So am I going to be that type of person going forward that says he's going to help a bunch of people out and doesn't do it? Oh, hell no. I'm not going to be the person that quit like that, and that clicked it in. It was once you associate that behavior, you're not going to want to go back on that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. What I also like to do, and I do this on purpose, is I let my goals be known, and that way you don't want to go back to somebody and say that you didn't do what you said you were going to do. And so some people can do that. I'm not one of those people. So I'm just like you in the sense of, I'm very aware of my perspective. I'm very aware of how people perceive me. So therefore, I'm always doing the best that I can to be the most polished. One of my first sales mentors told me you'll never get a second chance to make a first impression. And it was so true, because if you start off on the wrong foot, it's very difficult to go back and kind of backpedal. And so when I talk to people and I talk about the things that I want to do, and then they see me making it happen, they're like, damn, Marcus is like somebody that is about it.
Yeah.
You know? Somebody that not only is a talker, but somebody that is a walker, somebody that does what they say.
That's awesome. When you see people within the music realm, maybe people just starting out, and this could be even yourself, what's something that when people are starting out with it, they spend too much of the first 4 weeks focusing on that doesn't need that much attention?
Great question. Especially with music, I think a lot of people, because we listen to music so much, but I think because we all have our favorite artists, and we all have people that we aspire to be like, a lot of artists, a lot of music artists, spend a lot of time trying to emulate other people. And I think that's a big deal for any artist of any type of walk, whether it's actual music, whether it's somebody that's painting, you know, whether it's somebody that's doing sculpting, whatever it may be. You know, it's all good and well to have people that you aspire to be like, people that you draw inspiration from, but you need to be able to find a way to be yourself. And that comes along with being comfortable with yourself. So if you're not comfortable with yourself, if you're not willing to let people see you, if you're not willing to let people be intimate with you, see the real you, nobody wants to see a second Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? Like, there's all these, like, now that he's passed, there's all these shows where you can go see like some fake Michael Jackson go up there and do the moonwalk. I don't want to see no damn fake Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? I want to see the real Michael Jackson. I'd rather put YouTube on and watch old Michael Jackson than go watch somebody impersonate him, right? So nobody wants to see something else that's already been done, and you're not going to be able to do it better than, you're not going to be able to be better than Stevie Wonder. Nobody can do Stevie Wonder better than Stevie Wonder. Yeah. Now, that's not saying that you can't go out there and learn from what he does, because I'm drawing a lot of my music background from Stevie Wonder, right? But I'm not trying to be Stevie Wonder. I'm trying to be Marcus Singleton. And the more and more that you develop yourself, the more and more that, and it also goes back to what we were saying earlier, working on your craft, dedicating your craft so that you can find where you work, you know, what works best for you. And so what works best for somebody else might not necessarily be for you. And as an artist, that's what you first need to discover. You need to discover, how am I going to be myself? How am I going to let people see who I am? And how am I going to be able to get my ideas out so that people can understand who Marcus Singleton is? You know, I think that's the most important thing before you start to do anything else. And when you're first starting on any goal, any piece of music, you need to discover yourself first.
I think that's something I'll admit that I even struggle with from time to time. Is I'm someone that can get very indecisive, and I tend to seek out other people's advice, which is good, but only to an extent. And I tend to overseek people's advice out for questions that involve my life. And like you said, no one's going to know your life better than you, and only you can be you, and you can't emulate what someone else will do because they're not in your shoes, they're not living your life. And that's something I've been trying to work on and be more decisive about, and I definitely appreciate and like that advice and how you put that out there, because I'm sure other people struggle with that as well.
Yeah.
So that's an important lesson right there. So flipping that now, if that's what people need to waste too much time focusing on, and that's what they need to focus on, there's this common thread I notice among all of us where at some point we don't feel enough. That's the way to kind of generalize it. It could be anything, whether you got picked on as a kid, whether you had done a lot of stuff and it never worked out, whether your family culture wasn't good. We all have some version of I'm not good enough in my head.
Yeah.
So when if someone's trying to use that advice now and create their image and figure out, all right, who is Joe? How can I put the image of Joe that I want out there and find my flavor and my style? How do they do that if they're struggling with some inner battle of not being good enough?
Yeah. I want to say something. I'm not sure if it's appropriate.
Go for it.
Really, like for me, I mentioned earlier that I really grew up in a very strict Christian background, and so so it's funny for me that I was an athlete in school, and after I graduated high school, I went straight to the Air Force. So when I got back from the Air Force, there was all these things that I hadn't really done. These things that were kind of taboo to my family. And discovering yourself sometimes means taking risks or doing things that people might shun. Doing things that you need to figure out if this is the direction that you want to go. And so for me, one of these things was just being able to be out and interact with people and not be so, just like you're saying, not so much self-doubt or so self-conscious about how people are perceiving me. So that's, I think, something that really one can work on from the get-go, is knowing you have to give yourself value. You have to, if you don't like you, nobody else will like you. So self-love, and however you do that, I mean, the question is, how do you really find out what that is? And you might have to go out of your comfort zone. You might have to try some things that maybe somebody says you shouldn't do, and that might be different for everybody. But for me, it was trying some things that my family forbade, or interacting with people that I generally would not have if I was living a squeaky clean Christian lifestyle, But those people, even though they might not have been as savory all the time, there's still lessons to be learned from them. Still be lessons to be learned whenever you're outside of your comfort zone, whenever you're doing something that you're not used to and you're stretching yourself. You can learn from those situations.
I'm curious to hear what you wanted to say that was restricted. How?
It's funny, but some people probably already know what I'm leaning towards. It's the funny thing is, right, so we grew up in such a strict background, and so I got back from the Air Force, been away from my family, and before I went to the military, the relationship with my father was not the best, right? So when I got back home, well, really when I was gone, and when you're in the military, of course, you realize how important your family is, right? So when I got back home, the day I was released from the military, I remember my father came out and we drove home in my Mustang. And I think that was one of the best reconditioning aspects of our relationship, is we just had time to kind of get to know each other a little bit more. And I remember I went back to school. I moved out my folks' house and into a place in LA, actually a place in Englewood. And I remember, like it was yesterday, my father came in one day with a little bag, and he pulled it out and he said, "Let's do the father-son thing that we never did before." And my dad has a joint in there from 1972. That's awesome. It was funny. Like I said, I was an athlete, and then of course I was in the military, which of course you can't do any type of drugs. But for me, that thing that was forbode, that thing that was not something that my family did or participated in. It's funny, not only that, but my father actually ended up that was the first time he smoked in over 20 years, right? But that was really cool, and it also taught me to open up my mind, and it's also a very people person, thing. So it allows you to go and talk and interact with people and just be open to receiving what is out there for you. And so that was one thing that allowed me to get out of my head and not be so self-conscious and so worried about what other people thought, because at that point you're just relaxed, you're happy, you don't, you take less things seriously. And I think that's what people need to do sometimes. I think sometimes people are too serious and they need to have fun with life.
Yeah. I like, that's awesome.
I hope I didn't damage your whole entire shit. You gotta cut this out, Joe.
No, but I'm glad that he was open to doing that, because it ended up being an opening experience for you. So
right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We were talking about how with this social media, it's easy to highlight what you want people to see, even though it might not be the truth. But at the same time, I'm sure with what you do with music and stuff, you have to be on social, so you can't tune yourself out from that. So how do how do you not let that affect you when you see, like, let's say you're putting out songs, you're working on your album, but then you see someone maybe on your level looks like they're one-upping you, and now you're just like, oh damn, I'm looking at these people's stories.
Right.
He's hooking up with him, he's connecting with them.
Yeah, you have a choice to make. You can either let something like that motivate you, or you can let it hold you back. Those type of things always motivated me. Matter of fact, MySpace, when MySpace first came out, I only added like music people, because what I wanted to see is I wanted to see what people were doing that made them successful. And so social media has always actually kind of pushed me. And when I was working out, my social media, like everybody on my Explorer page, all people that worked out, right? Because that is something that I needed motivation for. Somebody needed to see people doing it better than me. And then I'd be like, yeah, I can do that. Or, it might be some workout that I never seen. Oh, I want to give that a try. And so in regards to music, yes, you don't want to ever make it seem like you're doing better than you are. Be honest with people, but I think people respect that, especially your fan base. Your fan base wants to see your growth. Your fans aren't expecting you to be, Lil Wayne overnight. I think reason why people like Lil Wayne is because they remember Lil Wayne, like young Lil Wayne, like Lil Wayne before, before everything. I don't know. Lil Wayne before skinny pants and skateboarding, and all those things, So that's what people want to see. They want to see your journey. That's intriguing to them. So social media is powerful in two ways. One, it can give people a timeline into your what should be your real life, but also at the same time, it can motivate you if you allow it to. So it's all in your frame of mind and how you position yourself to think and react to things. But being proactive is always better than being reactive. So what I mean when I say that is that be proactive about doing things that you want to show on your social media sites. So for me, it was always I wanted to do shows. I wanted to go and perform places. And so how that works in regard to my social media accounts is that actually I just put out into the universe that I wanted to start doing shows, and I actually didn't reach out to anybody. People found me on my social media sites and they reached out to me, and that's how I played every show that I've done so far. I've never actually applied to do any shows. It's all people that have found me some way, somehow through Instagram or Facebook or what have you, that reached out to me, and that's all one because I I take very good care of my social media. In other words, I put a lot of professionalism into it. There's not pictures of me smoking weed on there. There's not pictures of me, hugging my mom, even though that's great. This is my professional. This is not my personal Instagram.
Yeah.
Rather, this is my professional image that I've worked hard to get to. So all the pictures on there are professional pictures taken with a high definition camera. Everything that I say, all the quotes. Who knows will ever go to check out my page. I don't want one thing to misrepresent me.
Yeah.
Right? So that's important. And that preservation of me being able to be in a position to take care of that in such a methodical way has given me more opportunity than I feel other people. Because really when you're in music or when you're any type of stand-up, if you want to be an actress or actor or modeling, where the image is so important, if anybody can find something that they can poke holes in, oh my God, they're gonna let you have it.
Yeah.
And they will. Matter of fact, people are waiting to poke holes in anything that they can because they want to hate on you, right? So if you have a social media, if you have anything, you need to be honest with it. But what I've always set my goals so that my posts on social media reflect what I'm really doing. So if I'm in the studio, I'm really working on an album. I'm not posting a picture of me being in the studio and I haven't worked on anything in 3 months.
Just go there, take a picture, and you leave.
Yeah, that's not happening. When I'm there, I'm really there. And I think the other thing that's cool about social media now is they have all these things where you can actually go live, and that's where people can see, hey, this is what's really happening. If it's a photo shoot, this is my real behind the scenes. You can see this. And I think that's the good part of social media. Then the bad part of it, of course, is people misrepresent themselves. And the less that you can do that, if you want to be successful, the less that you can do that, you might have to fake it and make it in some regards, but you definitely don't want to consistently be putting up a front, because when the time comes for you to meet somebody that is actually reputable and somebody that's going to look at your image and decide if they want to work with you, and then they find things that are not true, forget about it.
And I would guess that all that plays into how you build an organic following too as well, right? Is kind of being honest, but also putting the image you want out there that shows you and isn't, irresponsible or...
Right, definitely. And so people spend a lot of time, doing things that just don't matter, like taking pictures of what car they drive, or like taking pictures of the money that they spend and the things that they bought. Really nobody cares. If your music should be important, you know what I mean? If I want to follow you, I'm not following you to see whether you bought Jordans today or not. I'm following you because I want to hear if you make dope beats, right? So I think that's another thing that one would be smart to focus on if they want to build something successful. Find what you do well and exploit that. Continue to grow on that emphasis and represent that to people. Don't represent things that are not real. Because if that's, God forbid, some point happens that you're not balling like you used to be, and then people see that decline, then it also devalues you. And people, oh, he didn't buy Jordans this week. What's going on? You know what I mean? And so that's why I never wanted my Instagram or anything that I was related to be materialistic. It's all about the hustle and the grind, and really more so you can see me in my process of getting to where I want to be.
That's awesome. And that's definitely good advice. That's something I'm trying to do with the podcast Instagram as well, as show the process of how I record, how I edit, how to get the guests on and stuff. And I got to pick it up a little more, but that's definitely something I'm trying to do as well.
Yeah, it makes it fun.
Yeah. Last question that I like to end each episode on, it's the mind-action gap. It's people going from idea to actually stop talking about it and actually doing it. What's one actionable tip you'd give to anyone right now, whether it's behavior or actual physical tip to get going on that idea rather than just keep talking about it?
Yeah, I've touched on it a couple times, but it really depends on who you are as a person. If you don't find yourself to be a go-getter, somebody that is overly motivated to do something, somebody that has a chip on their shoulders, probably from somebody telling them that they couldn't do it. If you're not one of those people, that's fine. You can still be successful, but involve yourself with somebody like that, right? Involve yourself with somebody that is grinding, somebody that does have a chip on their shoulder, somebody that is motivated because somebody told them that they can't, or that they shouldn't, or that they will never. And then you'll start to take in the traits of that person, and you'll be able to find the way that you want to go about taking that first step. But I really, really do truly believe it's about the company that you keep, and at some point you're gonna have to be accountable for yourself too. You can have people that you want to be around, but those people are not going to invest into you if you're not investing into yourself. Nobody's going to give you a handout. Nobody's going to give you anything that you don't deserve. So you have to be able to show people, those type of people, that you want it, that you're willing to work for, that you're willing to do whatever it takes. If that means you need to stay late, go to bed early, if you need to work an extra hour, you need to work some part-time job, if you need to Uber on the weekends, whatever it may be. There's so many people that make excuses. I don't have the money for studio time. I don't have the money to get professionally shot by a photographer. I don't have the money for a music video. But then we talk about them getting Jordans and posting on their Instagram, right? So it's where are you going to dedicate the energy that you need to be successful, and where can you not focus it on things that really don't matter, materialistic things or things that are fleeting. Invest into yourself, invest into grinding your hustle, and that'll sustain you. But you're not going to do it by trying to build something that's not really yours, and trying to slide into somebody else's shoes. Nobody can do the work for you. And I think that's why I like to relate a lot of things back to working out, because that's how you really realize that nobody can do the work for you. Not everybody has to be in perfect shape, but set yourself a goal, and if you really want to be successful, follow it through. I don't care what it is. If it's climb stairs, if you couldn't go up the stairs at first without having a heart attack, then that should be your goal. The goal is not to run up the stairs 10 times. The goal is just to get up one time. And then when you actually get up one time and not have a heart attack, you're like, something happens in your mind. you're like, wow, this is something that I never thought that I could do, but I see myself doing it. And I think that will give you the platform to continue to do more things, take more risk, and put yourself in positions that make you uncomfortable, because that's where the strength comes. That's where the goals are achieved in uncomfortability.
Awesome. Marcus, thank you for coming on.
My man!
Social, what's your social?
So my social media, of course, Instagram, follow Marcus. It's as simple as it sounds, follow Marcus. My Facebook is like.Marcus Singleton, like.Marcus Singleton. And you can always check out my music on www.marcussingletonmusic.com. All very easy.
It's also on, you have your album, Chemistry, Spotify,
album,
iTunes.
Chemistry, absolutely. It's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, it's on your baby mama's dresser. It's everywhere it's everywhere that you can find music. So anywhere you can just type in Marcus Singleton, or you can type in Chemistry and you'll find that music.
Awesome. Any, real quick, any big projects coming up?
Yeah, so I'm working on creating a showcase for artists that want to be able to do what we're talking about, want to get out there, they want to create a fan base, they want to create a following. And I think that's also what we should spend more time on. Spend more time on doing live shows and performing. It's really good to go in the studio and make good music, but I think in this generation we've lost the translation from having good music that somebody can play versus having good performances. So I want to get back to having good performances, and that's why every time I do a showcase, we're playing with a live band, because that's getting back to musicianship, getting back to people that have played their whole life just to be able to, know these chords and how to, do all the things with the instrument possible. It's because this is not something that they just did overnight either. This is something that they've been working on, since they were probably real young, right? So to invest in doing things with people like that, that's how you have more quality in musicianship. And I think that's what music is missing. So I'm doing an artist showcase. It's called Sold Out Showcase. And you'll be able to see that. We're doing a show at Los Globos coming down at the end of this month.
Awesome. And they can probably keep track of that if they check your Instagram.
And check my Instagram, you'll be able to check that. And we're also creating an Instagram for Sold Out Showcase as well. But yeah, just stay in tune with my Instagram, my Facebook, and you'll be able to find all the information you need.
Perfect. And we'll add that to the show notes, and as that's coming up, we'll post that on our Instagram as well.
Hey.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Marcus.
Thanks, brother.